Hey everybody, Adam Savage here in not my cave. I'm in Fon Davis's cave.
Welcome to my cave.
Thank you, sir. I have talked a lot about my history as a model maker, as a burgeoning businessman in the late 90s and the early aughts, and I went through a lot of that with you. We were doing the same thing at the same time, kind of building our little shops together.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk today about some of the work we did on the Matrix sequels. We have a terrific history in our lives of working on all the bad sequels of truly great movies.
That's right.
Whether it's Matrix,
Terminator 3.
Terminator 3.
Yeah, the prequels.
Yeah.
Mummy Returns. Oh boy, the list goes on. Doesn't it?
So we were
Jurassic Park 2 and 3.
I was not on either of those.
Okay.
Those are both before and after. But we were on Matrix. We were model supervisors, and we spent a huge portion of our time in a small little room out on Alameda Island where they built P-51 Mustangs behind us during the World War II, running a beam dynamics laser. And I feel like we could talk a lot about what we did just by showing and talking about this piece of wood and plastic. Describe what this thing is.
Okay, so a good portion of what we built for the movie were these giant sets, and they all had floors. And so basically what we did is we did a miniature version of everything they did in live action. So we got the blueprints from the live action division of the movie.
And so
then
this was, we were doing
scaled everything down and made laser cut sections.
And this is specifically the dock where the ships come in to land in Zion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The Zion hangar, I guess it was.
We called it the, yeah. So in the end
We had
of
a lot
the,
of weird names. Like
is
we
it
called the middle the hamburger.
Right. And then it's the third movie that ends with the ship crashing through the blast doors,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So that was the biggest sequence we worked on Matrix, was prepping for that. So it was building this gigantic bigature. It was like 40 feet across.
Yeah.
And it was a miniature.
Yeah.
And this was the floor. And this is our effectively like the first camera test or the first demonstration test of the art department of what the pieces we would eventually make look like.
Yes. Yeah. And this is, so this all matches. And some of this is laser etched. Some of it is something we invented at ILM called out of focus scoring. So we'll like pull focus on a score. And then some is regular scoring. And then of course, cutting all the way through.
Understand that even now laser cutters are, while they're more turnkey than they have ever been before, in 2002 when we're working on the Matrix, a laser cutter is effectively a machine you're buying, but as far as like the software that runs it, it is an ongoing process between you and the company. And so we worked with this beautiful beam dynamics laser, very, very powerful, but we were also running so much dirty crap through it and running it so hard, we were basically fixing it every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm remembering, now that I look at this, I'm looking at this and I'm remembering this was part of this long curve, and now I see this facet, and I have this memory that like, we had an issue resolving large curves on that laser.
Yeah, for some reason it wouldn't break large curves into the multiple sections it needs to duplicate a circle. And so when you did small ones, it was not a problem. When we did big ones, you'd have these big facets. And we did eventually find a way to fix it, but not in time to do this set.
No, this was like, and so this is the thing where you're dealing with the artifact of the software's ability to resolve these large mathematical constructs that are the curves. And when this doesn't work, we just had to figure out a way to get that curve, which was to break it into smaller chunks and facet the hell out of it, right?
Yeah.
There's also no way to do things.
That's correct.
We're running all these plastics through it, and beam dynamics is, we're looking forward to hearing what values you guys come up with for cutting that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this stuff.
This was quite the achievement, because so when you learn how to use a laser cutter, I know Adam has experienced this. I don't know if anyone else out there has. When you learn how to use a laser cutter, there's this challenge that you put yourself through, and that's, can I make an entire prop with nothing but the laser cutter? And then occasionally you run into that one shape or that one component, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna have to make that without the laser cutter. And this looked like it was gonna be one of those things, and then we figured it out.
But these are the ammo carriers, and actually these are even though this is in the wrong scale, these are the ammo carriers for the ammo for these whatever they called these.
The APUs.
The APUs, right.
Yeah.
So these would get loaded up the backside of this guy, right? Obviously at a different scale, but we built a whole bunch of these for sitting out on the set and being part of the set dressing.
Yeah. Yeah, tons of these. And then so the way we ended up, I thought for sure, like the backs of the bullets, they're flat, you score them, boom, done. But the fronts of the bullets, they're cone shapes. And so just as a test, I just pulled a really far out of focus score, did numerous circles in this pattern, and created these cone shapes with the laser cutter in a way that you would never imagine using the laser cutter. And then this entire prop was made up of laser cut parts. That was the one part that we thought we wouldn't get away with.
Well, and we would end up with like this hero board of little pieces like this that were set up that said, undo this to, right, score 5 up to 60 power, but then there's also like how far you would unset the focus to get that effect.
Yeah, so this is the actual board we used for our crew that was laser cutting parts for this. It had all the notes as to what the settings were for the laser cutter. To get these parts exactly the way they were. Because the styrene, I remember we had to really push the envelope on that as well, which is what we often do.
To get those thin pieces,
to get that thin styrene without warping it.
Right.
Because it would just melt and turn into like a squiggly mess.
You'd be spending like half a day just cutting various iterations, adjusting the settings by one increment at a time to get the right thing. There's this other aspect I want to talk about that most people wouldn't realize is, so obviously the main base of the floor was wood that allowed us to screw it and glue it to the rest of the set. But when you're adding in these plastic details, the inconsistencies in its manufacturing becomes something you really have to address. This black acrylic, which is extruded, not cast, means that it can have a variance. This is 0.62. This is 16. But I can see right now it's like probably 45 thousandths, right? Like its spec is way out of tolerance, and you could end up cutting a long piece of this that abuts to another one. And if there's a step, I'll tell you, you're going to find out about it from the cameraman, and that's the last person you want coming to you to tell you that your set is showing its scale because they've done a long raking shot.
Yeah.
Right. So we had to like go choose pieces of plastic for some of these.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always better to work with cast acrylic because it's a consistent thickness, but we didn't always have access to that. So we used the extruded, and it was very tricky. Sometimes you would get out calipers and measure the ends of the sheet that you're going to butt parts into for the next cut so that you knew all your pieces were going to be at the same elevation.
This all brings, even when you brought this out,
the smell.
And I smell that smell of burnt acrylic and burnt wood. We spent a year in that room, in this little room on Alameda, working for Mannix, with Owen Patterson, the production designer behind us, Nancy Noble, art director.
Yeah.
That was such a fun shoot. It felt like a small shoot.
It did.
It was all of our ILM folks.
Well, and it was I remember it being very, very fast paced. Like we moved into an empty antique naval hangar, naval air station hangar, and we set up in a month.
Right.
And started making the sets. And these were giant, giant, giant sets. Because what they wanted to do is they wanted to film all the pyro and the explosions and crushing and crashing of things with large scale models so it would look more realistic.
But large-scale models means that the ship that crashed through the blast doors in that third movie, that ship was like 12 or 15 feet long?
It was like 36 feet long. 36 or 32. It was over 30 feet.
And going like 40 miles per hour on the tracks.
Yeah. And it had like a roller coaster rig hidden underneath our miniature. And we had to build special sections of miniature, not like this, that would break away as the ship would plow through it.
And some of those were made out of frangible resins, but some of it was lead that was actually soldered together so it would twist like metal.
Yeah, okay, the gate was 16 feet tall and 30 feet wide. That I remember too.
Oh my God.
It was massive.
Okay, there's this other thing that was going on the Matrix shoots that I want to talk about.
All right.
Which was the flying club.
Oh, right. Yes.
So we're working in this building where the room behind us is 80,000 square feet, and it's abutted on each side by another 80,000 square foot room. And those other two we weren't even using. So at lunch, you and Pierre Maurer and a few others.
Yeah, Pierre started it. He brought in a radio control plane, and he flew it in the empty hangar, and we all watched him.
So he walked over to this empty 80,000 square foot hangar with like 70-foot ceilings, and it's like the best place in the world to fly your model airplane.
Yeah. And then we all decided we had to have planes, and we were all flying them every day at lunch and our breaks. We were completely addicted to it. And then one day, two planes accidentally collided in a spectacular fashion. One of them the landing gear hit the other one's wing. It went spiraling to the ground and exploded into pieces of foam. And we knew from then on, that's what we were going to try to do to each other.
That became the only goal. Just smash two planes into each other.
And it's oddly harder than you would imagine. We would go in circles we'd go on Friday nights. We would stay late after work. And we'd be there for 2-3 hours. Maybe one or two planes would hit each other.
It
should be a
gig.
sport. That was so much fun. Oh.
Dude, thank you so much for taking this little walk down memory lane with me.
Sure.
I look at this and I can just tell exactly that it is the beginning of a project. Here's what we're going to do, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us. We will see you next time.